You wake up one morning and the applause you live for sounds thin. The promotions, the likes, the steady agreement around your choices, they no longer sit like a warm coat. They sit like a borrowed costume. That hollow feeling is not a mood. It is a diagnosis. There is a herd that taught you how to move. It also taught you how to stop asking the hardest question: who am I when no one watches? Nietzsche called the herd what it is: a swamp of values handed down in whispers and laws. He saw a society that praised comfort and punished exception. When everyone calls the same thing good, your inner compass rusts. But Nietzsche did not simply insult the crowd. He offered a direction: self-overcoming. The will to power, in his language, is not domination of others. It is the inner force that shapes a life worth living. Imagine a blacksmith in a cold shop. The hammer is your will. The heat is your struggle. You shape a new value by hammering against the old metal until it becomes a tool that serves you. That tool is not a weapon to crush others. It is an instrument for creation. Pause for a second. Ask yourself, what in my life was given to me because someone else needed my obedience? We hesitate here because the cost of leaving the herd is real. Kierkegaard and Sartre remind us the cost is loneliness and terror. Freedom is not a gift. It is a job with dangerous duties. You must choose, and with every choice comes responsibility. That awareness feels like dizzying height. Nietzsche calls it vertigo. Kierkegaard calls it anxiety. Both name the same thing: the raw feeling of standing at the edge of your life and deciding to step. Before we leap, we need a map of the inner terrain. Jung gives us that map. He points to the persona, the public mask you were taught to wear, and to the shadow, the parts of you hide because the herd would scorn them. The persona keeps you safe inside the group. The shadow keeps you asleep inside yourself. If you only rebel by changing your mask, you become another mask maker. Surface rebellion without shadow work becomes a mirror of the herd, but darker. Real revolt is deeper. It looks into the parts of you have disowned: ambition, anger, desire, shame, and learns to hold them without being ruled by them. Here is a practical image. Picture a pond. The herd is its ice surface. You skate along and never see the water below. Jung asks you to break the ice, feel the cold, and swim. The cold shocks. You may flail. But swimming is how you notice currents, how you learn direction. Nietzsche gives the goal: you are not just a swimmer, you are the person who chooses the river. Existentialism gives you the ethic you own, the choice, even when others call you selfish. Stoicism gives you the tools: how to steady your breath while the water bites, how to focus on what you can control when currents are wild. This combination matters. Without Stoic training, your leap becomes chaos. Without Jungian depth, your rebellion becomes a show. Without Nietzschean courage, your life remains small. So how do you start? First, name what you follow. That is the lowest and most powerful act. List the beliefs you have never tested. Which opinions are yours and which are inherited approvals? Ask one of those small, dangerous questions. Why do I believe this makes me good? You will meet resistance. You will feel shame as the herd whispers. This is normal. Nietzsche says the herd loves to bite at anyone who steps away. Expect it. The bite is not a sign of failure. It is a sign you're seen. Second, do a daily test. For 7 mornings, pick one small act that contradicts the comfortable script. Say no to a default meeting. Vote differently in a private choice. Wear something that you like, but others might not. These are not grand revolutions. They are calibration checks, primitive exercises in your will. Each small no is hammer on the new metal. Each small yes to yourself thickens your spine. Third, practice shadow dialogue. This is not mystical. It is a disciplined conversation you write. In the evening, pick one moment when you felt shame or anger. Ask the shadow, "What do you want?" Write the answer. Do not judge. Then ask, "What does this part fear if I claim it?" This simple two-question routine turns buried monsters into negotiable parts. You stop acting as if the shadow controls you unconsciously. You learn to integrate it, to use its energy in service of your values. Fourth, train like a Stoic. The Stoics teach a daily morning rehearsal. Imagine things going wrong and rehearse meeting them without collapse. They call it negative visualization. It does not build pessimism. It builds muscle. When the herd shouts, you will have already practiced how to breathe, how to choose the response that aligns with your values. Combine that with the Stoic dichotomy. Separate what is in your control from what is not. You cannot make the world applaud your truth. You can decide to speak it. Now, beware two traps. The first is pride that hides as Nietzschean bravery. This mannequin of courage wears cruelty like armor. Self-overcoming is not a license for callousness. It is the opposite. You gain power so you can give it back with purpose. The second is spiritual bypass, Zen or Taoist.com, used to avoid action. Taoism teaches wu-wei, effortless action. It is not passivity. It is the art of acting at the right time with the right force. Imagine a skilled surfer who reads the wave and moves with it. That is wu-wei. It complements Nietzsche, fierce purpose matched with wise timing. Here is the forward promise. The more you practice this integrated work, the less you will need to perform rebellion. The initial shakes will become steady steps. The loneliness will be replaced by a different company, people who meet you for what you are, not what you perform. Nietzsche imagined the Übermensch not as a tyrant, but as a creator of values who stands apart and returns to teach by example. Jung saw the individuated person as one who can join community without losing themselves. Combine them and you get a life that is both bold and rooted. Finally, a practical thing you can do right now. Pick one social pattern that shapes your decisions. A folder of notifications, a group you always agree with, a habit you copy. For 3 days, interrupt it. Replace it with a 10-minute journal. Write, "Today I chose for this one small thing. Why? What felt like freedom? What felt like fear?" Return to that question tomorrow. Small answers build larger architecture. Leaving the herd is not dramatic in the moment. It is slow work, like gardening. You pull one small weed at a time. Sometimes you plant a fierce seed. Sometimes you prune. The point is integrity, not fame. The point is to be the kind of person whose life is a value you would want to inherit. Nietzsche did not offer you a new creed. He offered you the craft. Jung taught you the workshop. Existentialists insisted you must pick up the tools. Stoics said, practice the craft in the daily weather. Taoists reminded you that timing matters. So here is the question that will sit on your tongue as you walk out. Are you willing to risk the applause for the right to answer to yourself? If the answer is yes, start with one honest no. Then keep it. The rest follows, not like a parade, but like a life. Start with Nietzsche. He does two things at once. First, he diagnoses the herd. The herd is a system of praise and punishment that rewards sameness. It tells you what is good by repeating it until you stop questioning. Second, he points to a project. The Übermensch is not a finished statue to worship. It is a direction, a way of living that creates values instead of recycling them. The will to power is not a command to dominate others. Think of it as the force inside you that says, make, test, create. It is creative energy bent toward life. When you reframe it this way, Nietzsche stops being a bully and becomes an architect's manual. But architecture needs plans. Jung supplies them. He describes the persona and the shadow. The persona is the public role you learn to play. It keeps you loved enough to survive. The shadow holds the parts you hide to stay safe. Here is the core mistake most people make. They rebel against the persona without meeting the shadow. They swap a polite mask for a different mask that looks edgy or superior. That is not freedom. True transformation requires bringing the shadow to the table, inviting it to tell the truth about what you fear and desire. Only then does rebellion become recreation. This is where existentialism becomes essential. Kierkegaard and Sartre force you to take responsibility for your choices. Freedom includes the weight of consequence. When you reject the herd, you must face social cost, inner doubt, and the terror of meaninglessness. Sartre's bad faith is a useful mirror. People retreat into group roles to avoid the hard work of choosing. If you leave the herd without owning the decisions you make, you have simply traded one script for another. Authenticity is not being different for its own sake. It is choosing, again and again, to act on reasons you accept within yourself. So, how does all this play out in the real world? Imagine 3 stages. Stage 1 is diagnosis. See the herd's patterns. Stage 2 is excavation. Meet your shadow. Tease out your drives. Stage 3 is construction. Live by values you help create. Each stage needs habits. Here are concrete practices that fold Nietzsche, Jung, existentialism, and Stoicism into a coherent routine. All 4 habits together create a loop. Question, integrate, choose, steady. Over time, the loop rewires decision-making. You stop reacting to applause and begin testing your values like a gardener tests soil. Nietzsche's will to power becomes the discipline to shape a life. Jung's shadow work keeps that shaping honest. Existential responsibility ensures the shape is yours. Stoic practice keeps the hands steady. There are traps. One is arrogance masquerading as Nietzschean courage. If you use self-overcoming to justify cruelty, you have missed the ethical point. Power without responsibility becomes domination. A second trap is romantic escapism. If you treat leaving the herd as dramatic theater without slow internal work, you are doing aesthetic rebellion, not transformation. A third trap is paralysis through reflection, spending decades analyzing and never deciding. That is also a form of conformity, pleasing the thinker in you while never risking the doer. How to avoid these pitfalls? First, test your values against pain. Nietzsche calls for amor fati, love of fate. If your values collapse under small hardships, they are not yours. Second, keep community. Yes, community. Nietzsche did not imagine a solitary tyrant. He imagined free spirits who could meet and challenge each other. Find a small circle that values truth over comfort. Third, keep rituals. The Stoics were right. Philosophy is a way of life. Rituals anchor big ideas in daily behavior. What about social consequences? Expect them. The herd can be cruel. Kierkegaard taught that individuality often requires solitude. But solitude is not loneliness if you are building something. Think of solitude as the workshop where your life is made. You will inevitably rehearse conversations with former allies. That pain is part of the price. It also reveals whether your life was built on applause or on foundations. The deeper the pain, the more the opportunity for genuine change. Now imagine how this looks a year from now. You still belong to groups. You are not a hermit, but you engage from a different place. You show up to conversations less to be validated and more to test ideas. You say, "I disagree," without trembling. You take on projects that feel risky because they are right. You sleep better. That is not charisma. It is coherence. Finally, let me give a concrete 3-step experiment you can try this week. Step 1. Choose one widely held belief you suspect you adopted for convenience. Publicly state a tentative critique of it in writing, in a context where you can take responses but not be crushed. An online group, a journal, a friend. Step 2. After each reaction, write your inner response before replying. Notice whether your replies are rehearsed personas or instrumental honesty. Step 3. At week's end, pick one action that aligns with your critique. Do it privately, then observe the changes inside you. That is the forge. Speech, inward witness, then action. You have reached the point where theory meets life. You have read the diagnoses: Nietzsche's spark, Jung's map, Sartre's cost, the Stoic steadying. Now the question is practical. How do you live this in a noisy world that rewards sameness? The answer is not a moment, but a method, a set of experiments, practices, and community structures that let you train away the reflex to conform and build the muscles to create values worth living for. Begin with small tests that matter. Choose one area of life where you habitually follow the crowd. It could be what you read, who you vote for, how you work, or how you parent. For 7 days, apply the rule of intentional interruption. Pause before you follow. When a default response rises, stop and put 3 options on paper. Option A is the herd response. Option B is the polite alternative. Option C is what you would do if you were answering only to your own judgment. This 3-option pause is practical Nietzsche. It creates a space where the will to power can act instead of reflex. Next, use the shadow protocol. Every evening, write one short scene where you felt pulled by shame, envy, or rage. Speak to that feeling as a separate voice. Ask, what do you want from me? What do you fear if I accept you? Answer without judgment. This is Jung in an accessible form. It makes the shadow less mysterious and more negotiable. Over weeks, your reactive impulses lose their secret power. You stop projecting them onto others and can use their energy creatively. Then, build your courage habit. Existentialists insist action must follow choice. Start with micro-choices that cost you something small. Decline an invitation to a comfortable yes. Publish a short piece that expresses an unpopular nuance. Take a different route to work. Each act trains you to feel the cost and hold your ground. Sartre's terror is honest. He says freedom is heavy. By carrying small weights, you learn to bear larger ones. Stoic practice rounds these out. Every morning, rehearse a minor loss. Imagine a messy meeting, a disappointed friend, a critic. Practice responding with calm and clarity. In the evening, journal what was under your control and what was not. This dichotomy of control is not a resignation to fate. It is a sharpening of energy. When you know what you can act on, you stop wasting power on applause. Combine the practices into a weekly cycle. Monday, question inherited beliefs. Tuesday, do shadow work. Wednesday, take a courageous micro-action. Thursday, do Stoic rehearsal. Friday, test creative expression. Saturday, rest in Taoist Wu Wei, allow yourself to be without forcing. Sunday, reflect and plan. This cycle balances interrogation, integration, action, discipline, surrender, and reflection. Over months, it turns theory into habit. A crucial element is community, but not the herd. You need a circle that values honesty over comfort. Form or join a small group with a simple charter. We speak truth. We listen without immediate judgment. We hold one another accountable, and we practice repair when we hurt each other. Name 3 norms: humility, curiosity, and challenge. Meet fortnightly. Share your 3-option pauses and shadow discoveries. Test each other's values and hold a value audit monthly. Good community does not remove risk. It increases it by inviting honest feedback, but it also makes transformation sustainable. Expect setbacks. They are part of the forge. Prepare a relapse plan. When you find yourself sliding back into pleasing, use 3 steps. Stop, name, repair. Stop the automatic behavior. Name the feeling and the script that drove it. Say it aloud or write it. Repair by choosing one honest act that reaffirms your value. A small apology, a boundary corrected, a public clarification. This ritual interrupts the spiral and reinstalls agency. For leaders and creators, translate self-overcoming into a public ethic. Nietzsche warns against the vanity of power. So make your will to power servant to values that uplift others. Create projects that test new values in the world. A workshop that teaches tough conversations. A product that prioritizes meaning over clicks. A policy that protects minority voices at a personal cost. This is how private individuation becomes public culture without replicating the herd's taste for dominance. You will meet critics. Expect accusations of selfishness or elitism. Answer with practice, not with polemic. Show your work. Let your life be the rebuttal when pressed to explain your criteria. Do my choices increase my capacity to love, to create, to work well, to hold responsibility? If yes, you are not avoiding the world. You are learning to engage it on better terms. Remember the paradox. You do not become unconcerned with others by fleeing them. You become more able to care by clarifying what care truly requires. Nietzsche wanted creators, not tyrants. Jung wanted integration, not isolation. Together, they teach a distinct compassion, one that is earned, not given as default. It is the compassion of someone who has made himself whole enough to help others without losing himself. Here is a final practical protocol to close this practice: the 30-day value reevaluation. Day 1, write your current top 5 values as if you were reading them at your deathbed. Day 210, question each value with a simple test. Where did this come from? Who benefits from me having it? Day 1120, experiment. Act as if the highest value is non-negotiable for 3 days. Day 2128, reflect. What changed? Who complained? Who supported you? Day 29, rework the values. Day 30, commit publicly to one concrete action that embodies one reworked value for the next 3 months. Why does this work? Because transformation is not a flash of insight, but a series of small recalibrations that rewire habits, relationships, and identity stories. The human brain and the human soul change through repetition. Nietzsche's call to create values must be tempered with Jung's attention to the unseen, Sartre's acceptance of cost, and Stoic discipline to make it sustainable. Eastern calm keeps you from burning out. You are not required to become some mythical Ubermensch. What is required is the courage to stop outsourcing your life to habits and opinions you did not choose, and the patience to build day by day a life you can defend even when applause stops. When you reach the end of that work, you will find something strange. You are free, not because you have broken all ties, but because you have chosen which ties to keep and why. So start tonight. Pick one heard belief and apply the 3-option pause tomorrow morning. Then write for 5 minutes to your shadow and ask what it needs. Take a small action that feels risky but right. If you do this, week after week, the crowd will still clap sometimes. That is fine. You will no longer need its approval. Your life will be a series of deliberate creations. That is how one person becomes an answering presence in the world, and by that presence, invites others to do the same.